Charlie, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are
Thanks
you?
Very much. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well indeed. I mean, I guess we have to start with the Minister for Hypocrisy, as they call it on the front page of the Daily Mail. You know, they seem, I mean, if I'm not trying to be unkind to this Labour government, they seem a bit accident-prone when it comes to appointing ministers, doesn't it?
To put it lightly.
I mean, they haven't had somebody quitting for a few months, so I suppose, you know, they're a due one. But this woman, Rushanara Ali, absolutely staggering, isn't it? A woman who not only is so rich that she's got a spare house to rent out for £4,000. I mean, a house that rents for £4,000 a month, it must be some house.
Well, and in a prime location, obviously, near the Olympic Park.
Yeah.
You know, one where students will want to be near universities. It's a campus site. So, you know, of course, she's creaming it in. And what she's done in her letter of resignation, as she says, she hasn't done anything illegal. But it would
that's
be.
all right then.
But it would be
But
in
it
a few
will
months'
be.
time.
Yeah, once the Labour government passed the new bill, which prevents people from hiking the rent just by kicking people out and going, oh, I think I'll just charge a bit more.
Exactly, and she's a minister in the Department for Housing, no less. So she's carrying part of this legislation through, and this is why there's been such a pushback. But there is a pattern emerging, Mike, as you've said.
There is.
There was a
all the way back to Louise Haigh.
Louise Haigh, exactly.
The convicted fraudster.
Convicted fraudster. So she was sort of sent on her bike in a transportation fashion. There was, I think it was Andrew Gwynn, that was a health minister, that was suggesting that there should be some elderly, hopefully that they die before
kill off some pensioners. Yeah, that would be good.
From the Department of Health. Then there was the corruption minister.
Oh yes,
yes.
She didn't quite understand the brief, did she? Because Tulip Siddiq thought that when they called her corruption minister, she had to be involved in some corruption in Bangladesh.
Committed.
She's now facing a trial, I think, in Bangladesh, even though she keeps saying it's a vendetta that they've got against her. Well, not really. You know, they're doing a genuine sort of investigation into corruption, and her auntie, who used to run Bangladesh, was apparently a ghastly woman who used to just rip the place apart as long as she made some money out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And now you've
I don't think I have to worry about any legalities there, because she has in fact been charged with that. Thank you very much indeed.
But you're absolutely right. And now we've got a homelessness, or did have a homelessness now.
Hopelessness, jobless.
Who's now jobless.
Let's not forget, you've glossed over Jonathan Reynolds. You know, you had to apologise. Had to apologise in the House of Commons for pretending to be a solicitor for 10 years. Right? Apparently, we misunderstood what he said when he claimed that he was a solicitor. You know, he didn't mean to say that, but he kept saying it. And he kept saying it for years and years and years, and then he had to apologise. And then, of course, we've got Rachel Reeves, who faked her own CV, right, and has now somehow become the Chancellor of the Exchequer, possibly the worst one ever, with not much knowledge of economics, even though she claims to be an economist.
And that's the trajectory I hope that the Director of Travel might be seeing. You know, we're seeing people in jobs of their departments where they're going against what the department stands for. So, you know, health and killing off pensioners, homelessness, getting rid of making people homeless. We've now got a Chancellor, hopefully, that because she's tanking the economy, or doing pretty a good job of it. She could be, and I think will be, I'm afraid that, well, not afraid, only for her sake, the next to go. Yeah,
I think so. She can't possibly survive, because, I mean, the Bank of England yesterday lowered their interest rates again. A lot of economists said actually that was the wrong thing to do, and a lot of people even within the Bank of England said it was the wrong thing to do, because inflation's going up, and if you do lower the interest rates as inflation is going up, it creates more problems for the economy. And you know, the business confidence is so low, nobody wants to spend any money, nobody wants to hire anybody, you know, joblessness has gone up. I think there's, 250,000 fewer jobs now in the market than there were. But the thing that I love about these resigning ministers is that, here's what she said, Rushanara Ali. She basically said, all relevant legal requirements have been followed, and I take my responsibilities and duties seriously. Really? What's the point of even saying that?
Exactly, yes. And no apology in her resignation.
She's ripping the arse out of these students, or whoever it was that was living there, kicked them out. Who knows if they have found another place to live, and ramped up the price of the rent. It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, it's blatant profiteering, and you know, as she said, she hasn't committed any crime. She hasn't acted outside of the law, but so you know, landlords are doing this. But the whole point of the Renters Reform Bill is to make sure that actually renters are protected. And there's always been a debate, and you've got to balance it finely. You don't want to put too much onus on landlords, because otherwise there won't be any landlords. They'll say, no, thanks very much. It's all too bureaucratic and it's too complicated.
We just won't bother.
And we won't bother because if we do have troublesome tenants, it's making it difficult to evict them.
Yes.
But when you do have good tenants that are, want to pay a fixed rate, they don't want to keep seeing their rents increase every year unnecessarily by scrupulous landlords. That's what the whole balance is about. But she has gone against every moral fibre and compass that's ingrained in the legislation to kick them out, hike up the price, expecting new people to come in. It's ridiculous.
It is. The Mail says it very, very clearly that now ex-minister's actions would be illegal under long-awaited legislation to improve renters' rights in its final stages after passing through the House of Lords last month, right? And they found somebody called Laura Jackson, who's a 33-year-old self-employed restaurant owner, one of those who rented the house, roughly about a mile from the Olympic Park, in March 2024 at £3,300 a month. I mean, that's extortionate money as well. She claimed she received an email in November telling her the lease would not be renewed this year and that she and her housemates would need to move out, giving them 4 months' notice to March. That's it. That will be illegal under the new Labour government rules, right? Current occupants reportedly moved in 4 to 5 months ago on the increased terms. It is believed Ms. Ali owns at least one other property in the area. Well, that's nice, isn't it? Super. Yes. Do you think she got it from Talib Sadiq?
Yes, they must be.
She's owned. I mean, she owns a few houses in London, which apparently she doesn't know she owns. Remember when she said, "Well, I was living in this property, but I wasn't sure that I owned it." Yes. I didn't know. I mean, I've never lived in a property that I wasn't sure about whether I owned it or not. I've lived in a few properties I've owned, and I've known that I've owned them. Yes. And it hasn't been any surprise to me that I've owned them.
And there was another.
Because I've bought them. Yes. And I've got a mortgage and everything, and every month I have to pay a mortgage. And the idea that these bloody ministers go, "Oh, I didn't know I owned it. Yes. I wasn't sure."
Exactly. And do you remember there was another Labour backbench male MP that had terrible standards in mould and all kinds of things.
Yes.
But he said, "I wasn't aware of it because it was through a tenant management agency."
Yeah, that was some guy in Birmingham, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He brought in some management agency. But the idea that they hadn't passed on to the owner, this backbench MP, is ridiculous.
Incredible.
So, lots of Labour MPs saying one thing and they'll come out and say, well, we must protect these people, we must protect renters, we must protect the homeless, we must do X, Y, Z, and it all requires a lot of money. Yeah. But when it actually comes, we've got to scrap private schools because
landlords are evil.
Landlords are evil. Private schools are evil when they send their kids to private schools and when they make people homeless, and because they're landlords themselves, they say one thing and do a complete other.
It is unbelievable, isn't it? Rachel Reeves talking about falling interest rates. Is this an old one or is this a new one? Let's have a look.
I welcome the fact that interest rates have come down today. That's good news for homeowners, good news for businesses. And interest rates have now come down 5 times since Labour came to office, in part because of the stability that we've managed to return to the economy after the chopping and changing, the mini budget under the Conservatives and Liz Truss. And what that means, that 5th cut in interest rates, is that if you're taking out a mortgage for £215,000, you're going to be paying on a variable rate around £140 less a month than when we came to office just over a year ago. So this is good news for people wanting to get on the housing ladder, people remortgaging, and also businesses borrowing to grow.
Do you think she's wearing that hat just in case anybody tries to kill her? Drop something on her head.
Walters, I think
she's going to walk around wearing a hard hat everywhere she goes.
Walter Mitty type.
James in Wendover says, "Put that banana skin on your desk in the bin, Mike." Good morning. Listen. I ate this banana just before I started. I'm sorry if you saw it, and this is actually symbolic of the Labour government. So I'm going to keep it on the desk because they keep slipping on it. Is it bloody banana skin? There you go. And this from Mark in Selby. Morning, Mike. Rushanara Ali is the one and only member of the Labour cabinet who has done what it says on the tin. She was the homelessness minister who made people homeless. Rachel, Yvette, Jess and Keir should take note. Let's have a look, actually, because this is the big story of the day, of course, from late yesterday, was that they announced just before the end of my show yesterday, we have now, for the first time, detained some migrants who have come to this country illegally on small boats. Let's have a look at the video that Keir Starmer put out. The country on a small boat, you will face detention and return. I meant it. I meant it. He's so hard, isn't he? He's a really macho man. If you enter the country, surely he should have said if you enter the country illegally, not if you enter the country on a small boat. Because what if you enter the country illegally in a lorry?
Yes.
Does that mean you're not going to be stopped? Yeah. And so basically what they've done here is they've shown people walking off a boat with border force into a building where they are kind of, basically, annotated, investigated, looked at, spoken to, which is exactly what they used to do. It's no different from what they used to do. And here they are sort of, there's no, what I want to see is, a prison door slamming and all of these people behind it, behind bars. But that's not what they're showing.
No, but it's also just not the reality of the situation, because you're not going to be deported. You know, under this one in, one out, as you said, it's
you might as well call it, panorama. It's not one in, one out. It doesn't mean anything.
No, exactly. And they won't be deported. That's the thing. They will be, as they arrive, anybody that arrives into this country, whether it's through small boat or if you're caught in a lorry, which still happens less so now because this route is so accessible. You will be put into a hotel still today. You will be processed. It will take weeks for your process to take part and then to take place. Then you will be, maybe, if you're one of the very unlucky ones that gets deported.
1 out of 17.
1 out, exactly. But
so as we're watching those people walking off the boat and going into this building, maybe one of them might be sent back.
Yeah.
And then he'll be replaced by somebody else.
By someone else that supposedly has ties or links to the UK. And what does that mean?
I mean, who are these people sitting in France going, I've got ties to the UK, and waiting for us to give them a sort of tap on the head and go, all right, you can come in and we'll give you asylum status and you'll be here for the rest of the time. Have you got any relatives? Yeah, I've got 150 of them, actually. All right, great, bring them all with you.
Yes, exactly. It could be a brother, it could be a father, it could be a cousin twice removed, that's already got into the country on a small boat.
I've got a cousin twice removed from Afghanistan.
But the reason why we keep hearing that the backlog, there's a backlog, that's got to be processed. But
75,000 is a backlog.
75,000. But they're
going to send 4 people back.
Exactly. But you keep hearing that the amount of approvals, I think the approval rate is about 80% or 60%.
It is. 60. It's the highest in Europe.
But that's because it's so easy to say yes, approval. It is more difficult to say no, because under our system you've got to justify why you're rejecting someone.
We can say no, but then they appeal and then they stick in the hotel for another year.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. While they get their high-priced lawyers paid for by us to argue their case, and quite often they then get to stay. It's unbelievable. The Sun have got a great one this morning on page 1, Asylum Seasiders. Basically 3 hotels in Bournemouth, which is a lovely part of the world, are being occupied currently by asylum seekers, and then the spread on pages 4 and 5, great headline, wish you weren't here. Which is brilliant. So they've got the Roundhouse, central location, hotel near the town centre, migrants gathered outside it, you can see pictures of them. Then they've got the Britannia, which is a similar part of the same chain as the one in Canary Wharf. Some of the bikes are racked up outside the hotel, you can see that. They're obviously Deliveroo drivers or whatever it is. And it's just incredible, and another one called The Shine, which is also not that far from the beach. It's within walking distance, actually, of the beach. And it has to be said, and I don't apologise for making the comparison, that ever since, I would say, 2 years ago, there have been a large increase in the numbers of sex attacks, rapes, sexual assaults in Bournemouth. Some young teenage girls getting assaulted in the sea, by migrants. You can't get away from it.
No, exactly. And that's why when we're seeing these protests, peaceful protests, people acting well within the law who turn up to these hotels, and you're seeing women and their daughters and real community folk coming together.
And we're going to see loads more of them this weekend, by the way.
Exactly. And in Bournemouth, there's a couple here, a retired great-grandmother, Susan Beecham, aptly named near the beach, and her daughter, forked out £1,400 to stay for a week in a Bournemouth hotel, to be by the seaside. It's the summer holidays. You want to spend that time with your... It's a lovely beach. Lovely beach. You want to spend that time with your loved ones. All the while, next door, they've got illegal immigrants, migrants that have come to the country, that are getting that hotel accommodation for free. And that just smacks to the injustice and the unfairness that UK taxpayers are having to pay thousands of pounds to have a nice holiday, to spend that time with their family. All the while, they've got people next door, they're getting it for free, and all the while not being able, or not feeling able, to go outside and walk down that beachfront after dark or whatever, because they feel because of the crime.
There was a 15-year-old girl, I think, assaulted last year actually in the sea. As she was out, sort of swimming around in the shallows, and some character came up and basically raped her in the sea. I mean, it's ridiculous. Let's listen to what Yvette Cooper had to say yesterday on this new pilot scheme with France.
Pilot has now begun, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. That is the first step to removing them to France, because no one should be making this journey in the first place, and that's why this is now starting the process to return people and to undermine this vile trade in people.
You won't say how many have been detained, though. There could be just 2 people detained yesterday. Don't the public have a right to know?
Well, we'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started, and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
How would a criminal gang use and exploit information about how many people have been detained? Surely, if you want to put the criminal gangs off, you would say, we've basically detained all of them. Yes. Everyone who's come in is now locked up, and we'll be putting them on a plane and sending them back tomorrow. Yep. That would presumably be a good message to the vile criminal gangs that she keeps referring to. By not telling us how many she's actually detained, surely they're going to go, well, this is a load of old cobblers. We'll just keep sending some more people.
Yeah. Well, exactly. The only way that it plays into the hands of the criminal gangs if the number is 2.
Yeah, right.
1 or 2 people.
Why
so if
won't
the number is so low.
We will provide updates. Well, provide an update then.
Yes, yeah. What are you
how
doing
many
here?
people are there? You stupid woman. What's wrong with you? Yes. You know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Here's what she said earlier in the week about the numbers. Check this out.
We're not setting out what the numbers will be at this point for 2 reasons. First of all, because those numbers will vary and will increase, and we haven't fixed an overall number for the scheme. We obviously want it to increase as much as possible. But also, secondly, because we're not going to provide operational information about which numbers, which days that the criminal gangs will then simply use in order to continue to ply their vile trade in human beings.
Yes, it is a vile trade in human beings, obviously. One of the things, of course, that the vile trade in human beings merchants are going to love is that every time they send somebody back, they'll just send them back over. Yes. They'll be charged double. Yes. So, well, how much did you pay last time? £2,500. Right, this time it's £3,500. You want to have another go? Yeah, okay then. Yes. So they basically doubled their money.
Yep. And all the while, let's be totally upfront about it. This is only 50% of the deal here. Yeah. Because the other deal, or the other side of the bar, is with France. And the idea that all of a sudden we send one back to, or 2, or however many, up to 50, it was reported maybe a
and
week.
then we get another 50.
We get another 50. Right. France are not going to all of a sudden now change their tune and say, oh, well, we'll welcome these 50 people back from and here, take another 50 people back your end. That's the reason why there's a limit. That's why the Home Secretary is terrified of revealing any kind of numbers, because they are going to be low.
Because if they say, for example, there's 10 people we're going to send back to France, and then the French go, actually, we don't want 8 of them. Yep. So we're actually now sending 2. Yep. That's why they can't say, right?
Exactly.
But just be honest with the people. And people are sick to death of the bloody lying Labour government who just tell lies every single minute that they open their mouths. This is Keir Starmer's video from earlier this week on the so-called pilot scheme.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain, and the jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working, which is on a completely unprecedented scale.
It's all rubbish. None of that's happening, right? And who are these people they're going to find that have never tried to enter Britain before? They're just wandering about the streets of Boulogne, sort of boulevardiers going, comment allez-vous? Would you like to have some mussels with me? Would you like to come to England? I've never thought about it before. Yeah, why don't you come over here? Because we've got this guy who's some bloke from Afghanistan. We're going to give you the right to take his place in England. It's complete nonsense.
Yes. And because
I'm going to say it again, I said it earlier in the week, and I apologise for anybody listening at 6:26. I know that the children at home, it's bollocks. Simply speaking, that's what it is.
Well, I think that would be the sentiment that most people up and down the country feel. You're absolutely right, because there's no way of knowing who these people are. So you come over in a small boat illegally. If you are one of those who end up getting sent back to France, you've turned up to this country without any identification. Right. You've not been able to tell the UK who you are. That's why you've been able to stay for so long, because they're trying to get to the bottom of your case. If you can't turn up with any ID or tell us what country you're from, what conflicts you're fleeing, what case you've got to be in the UK, then you should be deported within 24 hours. You know, there's no point being here.
Yeah, but it should be like a rubber ball, right? You land, you bounce, and you get sent back. That's it, the end.
Exactly.
Right?
But so it does allow you to, I'm afraid, sorry, Prime Minister, newsflash, you know, you will be able to legitimately turn up again at France, make that crossing again, because the UK government and the UK Border Security and Services will have no idea whether you've tried to make that crossing before.
Here's the great sort of piece of information about all of it, is that the French are under no obligation to tell us who the people are that are coming in the first place. No. They're under no obligation to tell us in the second place if the ones who come to replace the ones we send back. They're under no obligation to tell us whether they've got a criminal record or whether in fact they are dangerous terrorists. We have no ability to actually judge who these people are anyway.
No,
which is pathetic.
And isn't it a coincidence that ever since President Macron's state visit, where there was that sort of one attempt to sort of, which they did, they slashed the dinghy that was sort of about to take off.
One dinghy
just before the state visit. Not seen anything since, have we? Nothing like that.
Yesterday, on day one of the sort of the new regime, if you like, the gendarmerie were just standing on the beach watching everything and just waving people away, going, au revoir, à bientôt, I'll see you when you get back.
And how many UK politicians does it take that go out to that now doing all these videos? Chris Philp, I think the Shadow Home Secretary, was the last one to be on a vessel watching the French authorities escort
Nigel Farage.
Exactly. Nigel's done it, Chris Philp's done it. I'm sure Robert Jenrick will be out there.
He will be. Jenrick's really upset that he didn't think of doing it before Chris Philp did. Anyway, listen, we're running terribly late. We haven't even taken a break yet, and it's almost 6:30. We're here, of course, until 10 o'clock. It is Friday, and so not only are we looking ahead to Plank of the Week, but we will be. Oh, there's the migrant tracker, 48,833. I guarantee you that will be 50,000 by about Tuesday, right? No question at all. Here's Julia Hartley-Brewer with a gaffe, okay? And if you are listening with your children, I apologise in advance, because this is a little bit graphic, is all I can say.
Would you ever want your own daughter, would you encourage your own daughter to do what you do?
And you're going to think I'm sort of telling lies, but if they genuinely wanted to do this...
Genuinely wanted completely strange men in balaclavas to strangle them?
Yeah, I would honestly support them. I'd have to explain all the risks, all the dangers, but the world's a dangerous place regardless now. You could be walking down the street and you might as well have security.
Well, I don't think as a general, I've managed to go my whole way through life without anyone strangling me or being gangbanged. I mean,
it depends what type of sex you like.
I'm sorry. That's a relief anyway. It's 6:29, this is Talk. Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:32. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It is Friday, 8th of August. Charlie Rowley is here with me. We're talking about the one in, one out scenario, and I don't mean Julie Hartley-Brewer. 48,833 is the migrant tracker currently. Let's get Jamie on the voice notes.
Morning, Mike. Great show. Jamie from Hornchurch here. What everyone is failing to see with this one in, one out scheme is it's not even one in, one out. It's just extra people, because all the ones that get deported back to France are now not eligible to come in on the scheme. So they'll just try it at a later date, and they'll just be part of the 17 in, one out that the actual number really is. So we're not getting one in, one out at all. We're just getting an extra 50,000 a year. I just don't see how this government seems to think that that's in any way, shape or form an acceptable deal for the British public.
It's really not, and you're absolutely right, Jamie. And Charlie, this is sort of indicative of how this government operates, isn't it? They come up with a plan, they come up with a sort of title for it, which doesn't really bear any resemblance to reality, because it isn't. It's not one in, one out. Under no possible kind of realistic manner is it one in, one out. It's at least 17 in before you get one out, and then the one out is replaced by one coming in. So actually, it's 17 in, one out, and then another one in. So it's actually 18 in and no outs, really. I mean, so the idea they keep calling it one in, one out is a sort of nonsense, but it's typical of Keir Starmer, who seems to think that if he says something, everybody will just believe it.
Yeah, and you and that voicemail from Jamie was right there, and it's in the Mail, page 6. Starmer accused of gaslighting over and it is gaslighting. It is gaslighting the British public when you say that you're doing something and you are doing nothing of the kind. Right. And even if there is one that goes out and one that comes in to replace it. That person that comes in to replace it will be here because they claim that they've got a tie to the UK, that they've got a family member. That person will still need housing support, benefits, they'll have access to the NHS and all other kind of public services. That's not bringing the bill down, that's not bringing the situation under control.
And
that
it's also not, it doesn't address the deportation required of anybody who is actually here currently, who shouldn't be here. Because what we've got is a backlog, as we said, I think of about, 67 or 70,000 people, many of whom are appealing, having been told that they can't get asylum, but they're still here. They're still in a hotel, they're still getting paid for, and their family is still getting paid for, and the whole thing is a complete and utter nonsense. And they've got to, the idea that they think this is now the beginning of the end, and this is now the real deal, and we're going to start kicking people out of the country. No, they're going to start kicking people out of the country who haven't got here yet. I mean, that seems to be the theory, but they're not kicking people out of the country who are not supposed to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And, Donald Trump was here, a few weeks ago now, but I think, his words still ring true. Whoever, gets on top of immigration, illegal immigration, will be the one that goes on to hopefully win the next general election.
Slightly amusing story off to the side about Rupert Lowe yesterday, who apparently complained, I don't know if he complained on social media, that he'd spotted a boat off Great Yarmouth, which of course is his constituency, and he said, they're even coming to Great Yarmouth, and he had alerted the authorities to it. So the Coast Guard got all excited and thought, oh my goodness me, there's people, small boats coming all the way to Great Yarmouth, right? It turned out it was a rowing team who are actually circumnavigating Britain before going on a transatlantic rowing trip to raise money for charity. So the fact that they were actually rowing sideways past the coast like that, when they weren't actually coming into the coast, should have been the clue. But people were turning up on the beach waiting for them to turn up, and it was like this whole social. It tells you how ridiculous social media is, really.
Yes, it is. But it's also worth. Okay, mistake, and hopefully Rupert can hold his hands up to that. But I would rather people call out things like that, and the authorities respond, rather than people sit back and say, "Oh, I don't feel able to say anything." Because
one of the things that people said afterwards, well, it's no wonder he's reported this to the border force or to the Coast Guard, because it's happening all over the place. And he's right, because it's happening in Devon. Some of the boats are not stopping in Dover because that's the quickest route, and they're actually going round to places like Bournemouth and landing in sort of deserted coves where the people jump out and just run into the town. So forget about the migrant tracker of whatever it is, 48,000 odd. There's plenty of people coming in that we don't even know about, that we don't even register.
And people are taking it into their own hands. Like Rupert, as they reporting that rowing boat. The people of Bournemouth that we were talking about, I think there is now a voluntary safe patrol group being set up by local people that obviously feel that their town, their city, is no longer, Bournemouth is no longer safe. So they'll be patrolling the streets themselves.
Absolutely.
God knows what kind of
There's been plenty of incidents of crime, particularly sex crime, against young women. Is Lee a new voice note, or have we done that one? Yeah, Lee's a new one. Let's go.
Morning, Mike. Lee from Chelmsford. We're ticking up to nearly 50,000 illegals in one calendar year. Now, I didn't study economics at the School of Economics, but that's 2.25 billion alone just for this lot. Where is this all going to end?
It's a very good question, Lee. Thank you very much indeed for it. We're coming back in a moment. We're going to take another break. Front page of the Times: single-sex spaces off limits to trans women. There's been a couple of stories this week about this, so we'll catch up with that. But basically, schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas will be told to ban transgender women from using single-sex areas, including lavatories and changing rooms, under Equality's guidance to be submitted to ministers this month, because there are some organisations that are still dragging their heels on this, which is upsetting quite a few people. It's me and Charlie Rowley. We're back after this. Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:39. I'm Mike Graham. Charlie Rowley's here with me as well. I got this from Steve. I hope these greedy, money-grabbing hotel owners who are helping the spread of illegal migrants across the country will one day see the contracts cancelled and that British people will never return to them. But of course, by then they'll have stuffed millions in their pockets and walked away. I mean, I think that's right. There is something to be said for hoteliers, and there's not many of them, but there's been a few over the course of the last couple of years who've just said, I was approached by the Home Office, or I was approached by Serco, or one of these other, contractual companies, but I refused to hand my hotel over to them because, I don't want to do that, because hotels in many parts of Britain are part of the sort of the fabric of society. People go there for retirement parties, they have weddings there, they have birth christenings and all that sort of thing, and so many hotels have just now been blocked off for people that you can't go there anymore.
Yeah, well, anecdotally, I mean, I think in the Sun, relating to that Bournemouth story, I think it's the Premier Inn. I'm no spokesman for them or on commission or anything, but I think they've come out explicitly to say that they don't have, they're telling the public they haven't got anyone in their hotels, they don't have a contract with the government, and they're specifically not seeking one. So, but also, I know a local pub back home in where I'm from in Hertfordshire. They were approached. This is they've got a few rooms above
an actual
above
pub.
Actual pub.
Wow.
Home Office approached them to say, can you house up to a dozen, I think it must have been. And this pub landlord, even though pubs are struggling up and down the country anyway, but he said no, because it's a community pub. He wants people to still be able to come into the pub and join. You lose a pub and lose it to migrants, it's just going to fuel community tensions even more. So he's rejected it. And I think that's fair
good for him.
And I think that's quite
Absolutely.
right too.
Quite right too. Let's talk about what's on the front page of the Times. Single-sex spaces off limits to trans women. Only this week we saw the story of the 14-year-old girl who went into a Marks and Spencer's only to be to try and get a bra fitting, only to find that some great hulking brute, 6'2" in a dress, turned up. And said, "Can I help you with your bra fitting, darling?" And quite rightly, the mother was appalled and was like, "This actually no." She's traumatised by that. Thanks very much indeed. And it turned out that the trans woman, who called himself a woman, was not actually due to be working in the bra fitting section and should have just been working in the general kind of clothes area in Marks and Spencer's. And it was like, what the hell is going on? J.K. Rowling's actually been calling for a boycott of Marks and Spencer's as a result, and that she's had a terrible backlash from the trans brigade. But this is supposedly because since the Supreme Court ruling that a biological woman is only a woman if she was born a woman, a lot of places, including hospitals, schools, shops, have not actually adhered to that.
Yes, and it is the woke gone mad, which I know people have known for a long time. And J.K. Rowling is brilliant, by the way. You're absolutely right. She's had a lot of pushback and a lot of trolling going on. But every response that she responds to those trolls on social media, she's brilliant, and she is a brilliant asset to the UK. She's a fantastic writer. She should be heralded. And she's standing up for, we're all talking about equality. We're trying to find a way in which everybody can get on and live their lives to the fullest and respect everybody's equal rights. But it's the rights of women that have been railroaded in this situation.
Erased, exactly.
And time again, and I don't know why, people just can't accept that women want to have single-sex spaces, that those spaces should be protected, and they have an absolute right to have that.
Well, one of the more bizarre exchanges I saw was between her and India Willoughby, who was, of course, a trans woman, right? And India Willoughby actually wrote a tweet that said, "Isn't it bizarre that we were both born in the same year? I turned out as a woman, and you turned out as a bigot." And you kind of go, one, you're not a woman, actually, and two, she's not a bigot. So, congratulations for getting 0 out of 2. But, I mean, this is the thing. You've got these blokes in dresses who are going on about how I'm more of a woman than you are, to a woman.
Yeah, and
it's ridiculous.
And this is where I think people, whoever you are, however you identify and whoever you believe you to be.
Yeah, but isn't it weird though that you find? I mean, this is what I found about the Marks and Spencer story. In what world does a man who wants to identify as a woman end up trying to fit a bra on a 14-year-old girl? I'm sorry, that sounds to me like you're a weirdo.
Yes.
A pervert.
Yes, there are.
What are you doing? Get the hell out of the dressing room and go and fit somebody's shoes.
Yes.
Right? If that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and it all, look, from the back of Reform, I think, and this week announcing they had a prison czar, Vanessa Frake, I think her name was, talking...
Yeah, she got herself in a right old mess, didn't she?
She did. I think there is, and I don't want to open any kind of can of worms here, but I mean, I can only imagine in one situation, and one only, where if you are born a male, but you undergo, clearly, whatever you need to undergo to actually become it. So if you have your manhood removed,
surgery,
if you have implantations, so you physically look
and you've lived like a woman for 30 years or something like that.
Exactly. I do think in that situation you would, if you commit a crime that is not of a sexual nature, you know, you're a shoplifter, prolific shoplifter for whatever's, you know, has gone wrong in your life. If you end up going to have to face time behind bars, I think you're probably more at risk going to a men's prison.
Yes.
And you could be isolated
Although
somehow.
I agree with you, funnily enough.
That is the only situation.
But I had the same argument with a women's rights activist who said, actually, yeah, that's rubbish, though, because at the end of the day, there are places in male prisons where vulnerable prisoners can go. For example, if you're convicted of a sex crime or you're a convicted paedophile, you know, you're protected from the general prison population. So there's actually no reason why a trans woman couldn't go to that section of a male prison. And actually, having been told that argument, I kind of go along with it now, and I think that's right. But Reform have been at great pains to point out that this is not their policy.
Yes, yeah,
and actually, you know, it was all a bit of a mistake by Vanessa Frake. But we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Prince Andrew just before we take another break. Page 7 of the Daily Mail. He was at least twice the target of an assassination bid, and as I said earlier, none of it was from his own family, surprisingly. This was apparently after the Falklands War ended. This is the new book by Andrew Lownie, which is a real blockbuster book, by the way. The Mail have been serialising it. We found out that he was really, really rude to staff at Buckingham Palace and various other royal residences wherever he went. He called some bloke an effing imbecile for referring to the Queen Mother as the Queen Mother. Apparently you're supposed to refer to her as Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and threw the guy out of the place. He's also turned out to have used his sort of trade envoy status to make a load of money. He's got a terribly childish sense of humour. He sleeps with, you know, not just women, but apparently fuzzy animals. Toys, you know. I don't mean those weird people, Furby people.
It's furries.
The Daily Mail's exclusively serialised this book, and it turns out that he's told somebody, he's done a podcast, the author of the book, saying the Argentine forces plotted to kill the prince shortly after their surrender to British forces in the Falkland Islands, and after the war he went to Mustique with Coustar, where he was almost killed.
Yes,
but you know,
I mean,
they missed apparently.
Yes, and other plots by, you know, the IRA, which isn't, you know, out of this world to believe, of course. And it's, you know, he is. You know, I don't feel sorry for the guy. He's been in the public eye. He's clearly made a name for himself.
He's had a pretty decent old life.
He's had a decent life, but he can't get a break. He can't get a break anywhere, it seems, at the minute. And he's not even a working royal. He's had to you know, give all that up, and yet he still pulls focus. Whether it's these stories, these revelations in the book that you were talking about, whether it's what's happening in the States with Jeffrey Epstein and sort of the Ghislaine Maxwell, you know, the connection that he had there. She's obviously potentially been offered some sort of immunity or get out of jail card by revealing what she knows about Prince Andrew. It's all a bit of a mess, but you know, great revelations, as you say, and also some of a sexual nature as well. Didn't he lose his virginity when he was 11? Apparently, it's another one.
Apart from anything else, apart from it being incredibly, it's just horrible. He's underage. I mean, it's a crime, isn't it?
Well, yes.
I mean, whoever enabled him to do that surely should be locked up, shouldn't they?
Yes. Well, another question for Bonnie Blue, maybe.
Well, very possibly so. Yes, we're not going back there. Morning Mike says, Fran in Kent, if they have been detained, ready to be returned, why have they been provided with new clothes? In the video, they're all wearing matching tracksuits and have a blue bag of belongings. Are they getting baggage allowance now as well? What a load of planks. It's a very good point. And here one from Michael, who says, where are they being detained? In a hotel? I want to kick the TV in laughter or tears. Have a great Friday. I mean, it is incredible, isn't it? Because what we can see from that video that we showed, and we'll show it again, I'm sure, through the course of the show, is that that's exactly what used to happen to them. So, you know, they would arrive in Dover, you'd see them being walked off the Border Force boat, usually, you know, up a sort of gangplank into a building, and that's all we're seeing now. It's not like anything's different. And the fact that they're showing them being sort of, you know, tagged and having something, you know, a wristband, but probably for access all areas, you know, drinks are over here, you know, over here for the gym. And then they put in a van. That's what was happening to them anyway. This is not anything special that's going on.
No, in the great words of Theresa May, nothing has changed when it comes to this particular policy.
It's not. What do they call it? What did they call it? An unfriendly environment. What was the phrase that they used to call it? Do you remember? It was a hostile environment.
Oh, hostile. Yes,
hostile environment. Yeah, that's what I mean. They haven't used that phrase, but they'd like to.
Yes.
But it doesn't look particularly hostile to me.
No, and it's got to be about optimism.
I mean, a hostile environment for me would be them walking off the boat and getting punched in the face by somebody from Border Force, thrown down on the floor, handcuffed with their hands behind them, you know, tied with their feet manacled like they do in America, put an orange jumpsuit on and march them into a detention centre which has actually got bars on the doors. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, that would be, and if those, you know, if those images...
That's proper detention.
Yes, yes. And if there's not the school stuff that Yvette Cooper seemed to sort of keep referring to, they're in detention. They're in detention.
Everybody gets asked, what's your star sign? You know, and what would you like? Are you vegan? Or would you like, you know, would you like the chicken or the beef? You know,
yes.
For God's sake. Anyway, listen, 10 minutes to 7. More coming up after this, including how inflation is costing you more and more money. Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:53. We are here, of course, until 10 o'clock. It's Friday, and it is August the 8th. It's my birthday tomorrow, by the way. I don't want to make a big thing of it, because I'm not going to. I just thought I might as well mention it, because somebody will mention it. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. Andy from Birmingham. Hope you're well, mate. Just thinking about all the cabinet, really, most of them, really, all their positions are untenable, aren't they? Well, you've got Rachel Reeves, who makes Diane Abbott look like a super brain. She's going to crash the economy. She's going to bankrupt the country. Everybody can see it. Nobody's doing anything about it. She won't resign, won't be sacked. And you've got the fakes list there, and you've got all the ministers the Minister for Homelessness that makes people homeless, and you've got the Minister for Corruption who allegedly got to face trial for corruption. You got Rainer, who said she'd build 1.5 million homes, and yet concrete is the lowest output for 10 years, 15 years. I could go on and on and on. West Streeting, really, you know, thought he'd got a gold medal by sorting the doctors out last year, only to be obviously skewered by them. And then that's without even mentioning Starmer. I don't know what's going on, mate, but this scares me. Anyway, have a great day.
Andy, very well played. They are hopeless. They're so hopeless. You can't literally move. I mean, I was saying to Christian yesterday, the producer, about, you know, let's just run through the card of all of the things that they've got wrong. Just in terms of ministers that have had to resign, you know, ministers have had to admit that they got something wrong, embarrassing explanations on television or in the House of Commons. It's just. I don't think I've ever known a government like it.
No. But apart from that, it's all going incredibly well.
I mean, you know, and here, you know, moving on to Rachel Reeves, homeowners have been boosted, according to the Sun, page 2 today, by a 5th interest rate cut in a year. But Chancellor Rachel Reeves' tax rate is pushing up the cost of the weekly shop, because they say 4% is now the Bank of England's base rate, down 0.25% from yesterday. But 4% is also the expected rate of inflation by the autumn. And I think I'm right in saying that is inflation not running at something like 3.6% now?
Yeah.
And it's likely to go up to 4 in the autumn, and likely to go up even higher than that. And people always say to me, whenever we talk about, you know, the basket of various things that are counted for inflation, inflation is much higher than 4%, because if you go into a shop now to buy something that you bought even last month, it's probably likely to cost you about 50% more than it did. You know, and I'm talking about like items that you don't really notice. Like people have said to me, like, you go and buy a packet of spaghetti, used to be 40 pence, it's now 70 pence, you know, which is practically double. Yeah. And because it's only 70 pence, you kind of don't think about it.
No, but it impacts, and it's you're absolutely right. This is a sort of, you know, giving with one hand, sort of taking with another, he says, because the interest rate cut is one thing. And by the way, you know, the government were very quick to jump on the bandwagon and saying how successful this is. 5th cut in a row.
Nothing to do with them, is it?
Nothing to do with the government. No. Bank of England is totally independent. It was a very, very knife-edge vote. 5 members to 4 voted for the cut, so it went through. But as you say, inflation will go up, or will risk of going up. That is the sole purpose of the Bank of England, really, to get inflation down. It should be hovering around 2%. That's its target. That's been its target ever since Gordon Brown made it independent. So the idea that inflation goes up, that's a cost of living impact for ordinary, hard-working people up and down the country.
Working people.
Working people.
Did you hear there was a new phrase that came out yesterday, everyday families? That was one from Keir Starmer yesterday. We talked about everyday families. Nobody knows what that means.
No, and you know, let's look forward to hearing the definition.
Yeah, well, we're still waiting for the definition of working people. We don't know what that is.
Yes.
This from somebody, Carl, from up north. He says, in those clips you're showing on migrants being detained, how come they're all dressed in the same stuff? Why are we spending money on clothes for these people? We are paying again for absolutely nothing. And Steve says, on the economy, if shareholders could see a company they had a financial interest in being run into massive debt whilst the directors and management constantly lied and covered up their incompetence, there'd be a vote of no confidence and the guilty parties would be removed in next to no time. Why do we have to put up with Reeves and Starmer and his fellow lying incompetence for another 4 years? Well, that's a very good point. If it was a company, if it was a publicly run company, not only would they be fired, they'd actually be probably arrested. You know, the fraud squad would move in and go, you know, you people have been concealing the truth, you've been lying about the actual financial figures, and you've been cooking the books. And that is an offence. Yeah, exactly. To all intents and purposes.
Totally. And the way in which, you know, the Labour government came in and, OK, there was, you know, clearly issues with the economy under the last Tory government.
Yeah, but it's a lot better than it is now.
Yeah, totally,
right?
Yeah. And, you know, the idea that now it's a 50 billion back hole.
I know. And they're not saying who's to blame for that, are they?
Exactly. And how,
it's obviously them.
And how are you going to plug that gap? It's going to be tax rises. And, you know, Rachel Reeves is going to have to come back for asking for more money, something that she'd already ruled out, something that they'd ruled out the last election.
They said they wouldn't do it.
So they wouldn't, and she's going to...
More lies.
So, you know, she's going... I think she's going to have to go.
She is, absolutely.
I can't see...
He's going to have to go. They're all going to have to bloody go.
There are reports that somebody... you know, he's been at Chequers, I think, for the last couple of weekends, having meetings with ministers. Yeah. They've given him 6 months, I think, to turn it around. Right. Otherwise, it's
curtains.
Yeah.
One final one. We've literally got no time at all, about 30 seconds, but front page of the Daily Mirror, a daily weight loss pill could be available on the NHS by next year. I mean, do me a favour. The NHS, the world's worst organisation, useless, doesn't work, nothing works, and now they want to give away more free stuff to people who are fat. I mean, just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there's other things you can do to get your weight under control, and there's more people where more money should be going to people that need their operations and should be and needing the NHS.
Next, it'll be free fat jabs for migrants.